Chapter 2, Human Population Growth, Video 3, The Consequences of Overpopulation. Overpopulation is putting an increased burden on the Earth's natural resources and environment. Resources which take millennia, thousands of years, to hundreds of millions of years, ores, to accumulate are being consumed and dispersed on timescales of centuries to decades. Persons in rich, industrialized nations like ours create a much bigger per capita impact on the environment than persons in poor, non-industrialized countries. The U.S. has less than 5% of the world's population, but consumes about 25% of the world's energy resources and produces about 25% of the world's pollution. Rapid population growth and overpopulation lead to increased urbanization, increased unemployment, and spreading poverty, as well as putting the Earth under increasing strain. Projections indicate that 69% of the world's population will live in urban areas by 2050, and increasing population pressures lead to politically unstable and civil rights abuses. The theory of demographic transmission implies that as a nation undergoes technological and economic development, its population growth rate or birth rate will decrease and lifespan will increase. Reasons for having fewer children include children are less demand for agricultural and economic support due to programs like Social Security. Children become economic burden instead of an asset. And children have higher survival rates, so you don't need to have as many of them. If you look on the right here, you can see with increasing GDP from $0 to $30,000 per year, we go from an effective birth rate of 6.5 down to below replacement. Over here, you can see the birth rate as we go from $0 to $3,000 is much more spread out, and the birth rate remains high, well above replacement of 2.1. There are some problems with the demographic transition model. Most developed nations achieve development by degrading their environments and exploiting resources from other parts of the world. The Earth does not have sufficient resources to permit the developing nations to reach developed nations' level of affluence without completely degrading the environment. There does not appear to be a necessary causal relationship between development, industrialization, and fertility rates. Partial or stalled development leaves countries with populations growing faster than the nation's resources can support, and evidence suggests that fertility rate declines are caused primarily by rising levels of education, nutrition, and infant survivorship. So even though the initial model showed that the data was tied to economic resources, further investigation shows that money is not the driving force, or economic affluence is not the driving force behind reversal of fertility rates, but that education, nutrition, and infant survivorship are the leading causes. Family planning is one of the major reasons for lowered fertility rates, and this includes the distribution of contraceptives and the availability of safe legal abortions and promoting reproductive rights of women. These practices are often in conflict with traditional religious and cultural values. If you look at the graph on the right, it will show you the contraceptive use and fertility rates graphed against each other. The average fertility rate with zero contraceptive use is around 6.5, but as you go up to around 80%, you fall below 2.1, and the population or fertility rate is below replacement. So if 80% of the population is using contraceptive, the population becomes vertical. One of the best ways to decrease the growth rate of a particular population is to increase the average education and societal status of women, the primary users of contraception. Improved education results in better health care, nutrition, effective contraceptive use, and increased status and prestige. We can tie education and birth rate together just like we tied contraceptive use and birth rate together. Once again, if we look at the number of children enrolled in secondary school, we can see at 0 the birth rate or replacement rate is around 7. As that increases up to 100%, the replacement rate or the fertility rate falls below 2.1 replacement, just like it did for contraceptive use. So clearly contraceptive use and education are tied together somehow in the influence of fertility rates. Economic incentives and government regulation also have an influence on childbearing. Some governments have used economic incentives and disincentives to promote population control. A famous example is the one-child per couple policy in China from the 1970s and 80s, which had disastrous results. Another approach is increasing accessibility to modern birth control methods and family planning information without mandating the number of children a family may have. Strict government policies have been mandated at times, which I already just said, in China. And that has had very, very strong negative results for the culture and for the society. In this section, we want to understand the concept of time and why is the concept of time important when discussing the consequences of overpopulation. What is the demographic transition model? What are some of the criticisms the model has received? What is the correlation between educated women and global population? Correlation between overpopulation and war is another good question we can think about. Please read the case study in section 2.2 and also on pages 46 and 45 through 46 in the text, and join the online discussion on population and disease. This will be relevant to your lab and the chapters we've covered so far.